Welcome back to Face It with Dr. G. I'm Dr. G, and I have the amazing honor and pleasure of having Dr. Lanna Chuck here with me today. She is a board certified urologic surgeon that transitioned into the medical aesthetic field and is the owner and founder and CEO and medical director of Dr. Lanna Aesthetics in New York City. We are going to dive into all of it. Welcome. So happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Dr. G. I love being here. We met recently and we hit it off, and I just kind of admire you from afar. So I'm so happy to be jumping onto your podcast today.
Yeah, me too. I'm so happy to have you. And let's just dive in with, of course, I want to hear your story. And you are, non traditional when it comes to those core aesthetic medical specialties that are seemingly to becoming extinct. I don't think we really refer to those core specialties in aesthetic medicine anymore. But you're from the urologic side. Can you
Yes.
tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm a 1% of minority women in robotic urology. I take care of men, or I should say, this is my former life, my 1.0 life, and we're just living a different chapter now. And so, yeah, I actually took care of prostate cancer. I took care of men's penises. I took care of women's, not women's sexual health, because nobody cares about women, right? It's like that's what it was like when we went to residency. It's like, what is women's sexual health, right? It was all about more urinary incontinence, kidney stones. So I did all the things when it comes to helping men feel and look their best and their most confident self. And then I kind of had to pivot into aesthetics because of necessity.
Interesting. And what do you mean by that? Necessity.
So I was a urologic surgeon. I graduated from Brown. I did a robotic fellowship. Then I came back, and then I was like the head of robotic urology for about 7 years. And then I had my child, and I had my first child. She was born very early. I had a very high risk pregnancy. I was told, don't work. But as you know, most women physicians, or in medicine in general, we don't like to listen to what people tell us, right? And so I worked all the way up until I unfortunately bled, and I had to have a stat C-section at like 3 a.m., crash cart and everything, 8 anesthesiologists like pumping blood and pushing blood into me. And I almost didn't make it, but I did, thankfully. And we have a beautiful baby girl who was like 2.5 pounds at 30 weeks of age. And she's wonderful and amazing, but we also learned that she was blind. She had detached retinas when she was born, and we tried to do all the things. We had surgery after surgery. We even, in the NICU, we even like transfer her out to another hospital in New York City, and then we flew her out to Detroit to see this doctor who was an pediatric ophthalmologist who would try to do a vitrectomy to make sure that it doesn't pull the rest of the retina didn't pull off, and unfortunately on the table it completely detached. So she is blind, and she is beautiful, and she's amazing, and she's my baby, and now she's 10 years old. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so when something like that happens, in life, it's about the journey. We have to make a pivot, we have to make a switch. But it wasn't until I had her, and then 6 months after having her, and I stayed home with her, that when I went back to the hospital, I was like, you know what? I feel like I should be paid the same as my male colleagues. Like, isn't that crazy, right? Wanting equal pay and knowing our worth, especially when we're not living for ourselves anymore. We're living for our children, right? And something happens, right, Gretchen? There's like a switch in our minds, like we just got to make things happen because there's no other choice. So I asked for equal pay, and they told me, well, show me you're worth it. Right. And so I was like, okay, how do I show them I'm worth it? I know, let me go to another institution and get something in writing that they would pay me more money. And I did. And I went to my chairman and I said, look, I'm going to get paid more money. Look, people find me, worthy. And he said, you know what, Lana? I think you should go there. I just, I don't see us paying you this amount of money. So I think you should leave. And that was when a light bulb just kind of went off. And I said, you know what? They are not going to appreciate me. They're never going to appreciate me. I'm doing all these things, killing ourselves for our institution, never taking a vacation, never taking a day off. In the end of the day, what is it all for? A child with special needs, because I worked until, in the OR, right? So I was telling them, okay, I'm going to start something else on the side as long as they allowed me to. And they said yes. And I also would love to dive into your story too. But Once I was pregnant with my second child, who is 4 years younger than my older one. I was called into HR office and I heard the four words that nobody ever wants to hear when they're called in the HR office. And those words were, "You're getting fired, Lana." And it really had to, everything changed at that moment, and lots of time on the bathroom floor crying and trying to figure out what to do in my life. But I want to tell you, it's a blessing in disguise, because everything that happens happens for a reason. And somebody like you and I, who's like, accomplished, has never been fired from anything in our lives before, I'm sure, right? To hear that you're fired from something was just like the biggest failure of your life. So that's what happened.
Totally. Totally. And I think we are very, very similar. I didn't know we were so similar, and I'm sure even more similar just from what I've heard. But are you one of those types of people that has 99.5 amazing things in your life and the point 0.5 that are bad or negative? Those are the ones you hold on to.
Oh, always. It's always that like negative, like that negativity that always makes us want to, be better, or, we're not good enough, or we have to prove ourselves over and over and over again.
Mhm. And I think what's so beautiful about your story, and I've had a lot of negativity in my life as well, it's shaped me to become actually an extreme optimist. So even when the bad things happen, I'm like, bring it on. I can take this. What is this going to teach me? Why is this happening? Everything happens for a reason. And how am I going to learn from it? That is the biggest takeaway. What will
Yeah,
I learn about myself, about my people, my company, my babies, my family? And it takes a certain mindset, and yes, it gets exhausting because you're like, okay, I really want something good, like why is it all bad? But it's all about your mindset, and you had that. It took you falling to the ground, it brought you to your knees, but then you're like, looking back, you're like, this all is the most beautiful thing that could have ever happened to me, because you were being
absolutely.
appreciated.
Absolutely. After about a month, I picked myself up off the bathroom floor. I'm like, all right, I'm
100%.
ready. I'm done. I'm done with the tears. Let's make things work. And I think something happens, Gretchen, and you know this really well, when there's no other option but to succeed, you succeed, because there's no other option. There is no safety net. And I think that sometimes people like us really need that push sometimes, because otherwise we'd still be in the hospital, or I'd still be in the hospital, right? So I do think that it was a very defining moment in my life, or redefining moment in my life, where the light bulb just went off and I'm like, all right, we got to do this. No other choice. And I think it all starts with, also even before me, like my parents and their story of immigration and escaping China, building a raft, on a boat. Like they literally had ping pong paddles and a compass, and they just escaped from communism because they were forced to work on the rice fields and was not given any opportunity for education. And they were like leeches that buried into their skin. My mom used to take like feces out of outhouses. Like that was her job when she was like working on the rice fields. And so they wanted something better for their children. They wanted life, education, opportunities. And so they actually emigrated, and they were smuggled into Hong Kong on a vegetation boat. And like I knew their story growing up, because they always told me the story, and I was just like, wow, like I would never take any opportunities for granted because of what they went through. And then when it's like our own story, it's the same thing. It's like we do a lot for our kids. We do a lot, it's almost easier for us to do stuff for other people than it is for ourselves,
Oh,
you know,
100%. We always
right?
do
You
that.
feel that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then one day you wake up and you're like, okay, but what's left for me? Right. And so I think I'm kind of in my 3.0 era of like, where do I want to be now that, my kids are older? We started up a foundation. My husband started up a foundation for my daughter,
Oh,
to help kids who are blind have access to music, because she plays music. She plays the piano. She's great. And my second daughter, she does have ADHD and autism, and she is verbal. Thankfully, she started speaking at 5 years of age. She's now 6, so she does have some speech, but just different, different, way of bringing up, and kind of a different lifestyle that we, are now accustomed to. So I think, in life, and you said this best, it's all about the journey, and that's something that I kind of realize. It's like it's not all bad. It's really mindset, because it could always be worse, but it's always like, what are some of the beautiful things that we've learned from our journey? And it's also like, if you don't like the journey, then don't be an entrepreneur, right? It's like you have to have the ups and the downs to appreciate everything, you
yeah.
know.
Well, you have to enjoy them. You have to be a little bit unwell, sick in the head to enjoy
Yeah.
those, because you're
Oh,
like,
100%.
I'm going to learn from this. It's going to make me stronger. How can I learn from this? What do I need to learn to make this decision? And I feel, and I want to hear your story too, I feel as I've grown, the decisions are that I make day to day, because the company runs itself with the management team and all the incredible people, but the decisions I make are fewer and farther
Mm.
between. There's more time, but they're bigger decisions, more people at play, more people are affected, more money's involved, and it takes more mental energy for me. So I do truly
Mm.
believe I get this decision making fatigue, and every day I have to use the mornings when I'm the most alert to
Right.
be like, okay, I need to tackle this today, and then the next day I need to tackle this. Whereas 5 years ago, I would have been like, because all the decisions were they were much smaller and they were kind of task oriented. These are
Right.
big decisions, right? So, in a lot of those decisions, I feel I have to do research in order to educate myself to then make the decision,
Right.
which, wow, it's a little bit crazy. But
Well, I would love to ask you, when you said something along the lines of, now the company runs without me because of my management team. And I think delegation is everything. You got to delegate to elevate. And I kind of always talk about this, but it's so hard as a business owner that like, come from an immigrant family, come from that like scarcity, mindset. How do you find the switch to being able to elevate others and delegate to others to, basically run your practice without you? Because that is the ultimate goal.
yeah, well, it's been a journey, and I've had a lot of, failed attempts with, let's talk about injectors, right? First. So, it used to be me, and then I would add one person and two people, and I've had a lot of people come and go, and some people would say, how do you keep going, because you've had so many people leave? And I'm like, well, I've learned from the people that left and exactly how I want to do things. So I started, and I would train them myself because I was the only one, and through that I learned how they needed to be trained. So fast forward to now, we have 9 total injectors, and we've created an entire onboarding system and an academy just for GFace MD injectors that is trackable, reproducible, sustainable, and it allows them to create confidence. Well, and there's like little quizzes and didactics and PowerPoint, so they're learning each technique and each treatment. But let's say, when you bring someone in and you train them and they don't see a patient for a year, or hopefully it's not a year, hopefully it's even a month.
Right,
They're like,
right,
oh no, I'm not confident. I'm not going to recommend that treatment to one of my patients because I'm not confident. Well, there's a library of videos that they can go and they can reference, and then they're like, I got this. I remember, I got this. So that's really helped because it's taken it off of me. I don't have to be the trainer for them. I know exactly how they're going to be trained. I know exactly what they need to do to get signed off, and I know exactly what they're learning, right? And so it's somewhat of the soul cycle kind of approach where every GFace MD you walk into you should expect the same thing.
right,
Different personalities and a little bit of a different aesthetic, each has its own personality, etc. So that allowed me to delegate, obviously, that part of things. When it comes to the business side, wow. I mean, it's all about the people. And I've said this a bunch on this podcast, but I'm going to tell you again because it's
yeah,
you. Is I found this beautiful secret spot of babysitters because a lot of what you do you have to trust people. And if I trust someone with my kids, then I'm going to trust them with my other baby, which is my company. And so that's one way I found people. But, it takes time, and people hate to hear that because they're like, I need help right now. I need help right now.
yeah,
But if you can slowly hire someone and grow them in your company and teach them the skills and they learn your personality, that's the best way. But I always say hire the person, you can train the skill because you want to work with people that you know are trustworthy, ethical, will make the right decisions, treat people with kindness and respect, and that are hungry to learn
right,
and grow. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing that happened to me when I was required to delegate was a burnout after my third baby. And we were switching over our HR systems and onboarding protocols to this company called Rippling. And I literally couldn't function. Talking about someone who's so high functioning and so such a multitasker, I couldn't do anything. And so Kaylee, my now director of operations, did the whole thing. And that was her first, not chance, but that's when she first demonstrated to me what an absolute badass rock star she is. And she has only grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And then I was like, Gretchen, not only did you used to think that you could do it faster than writing it down to tell someone to do it, you thought, oh, well, I'm not going to write it down because I could already have it done.
right,
When you delegate, you not only relinquish control and allow others to grow and thrive, which I love, but you learn from them. They're actually better than you are. you need to move on and be doing other things. So I've learned that I'm actually not the best. And that's really interesting because I never thought that. I always thought it was the best. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I love what you said about, getting the operations and systems together so that it's reproducible. And I think that video training is key, and having some sort of checklist so that they know. I think one of the issues that I have, and I think we've been doing it for probably the similar amount of time,
Yeah.
is really motivating them to do their own type of homework, because a lot of times, it's like you either hire the rock star, which is tough because they come with their own personalities and their own demands, etc., or you take somebody amazing and start them from scratch, but then they go through their own journey, and a lot of times they're also going to school or they have their own families or things like that. So I find it hard to have that perfect mold. There's nobody else that's going to be like us because it's our baby, it's our business, right? So we're kind of like one of a kind and we're unique. But to have somebody else be able to do the operations. I think you're so, I would be so grateful. But a lot of it has to do with luck, just finding the right person who has that right skill set, who has the time to do it, and nothing else happening in their lives that they can do it. So I love that that you found that perfect person to help you scale. And I think that's the hardest thing. 1 to 2 may not be the hardest, I guess 1 to 2 is the hardest, and then 2 to 3 is even harder. Just like with kids, at one point I had 4 locations, but the problem was everything was based off of me. And that's where, I feel like ultimately I've learned the biggest lesson is that when you have a company, it cannot be all based on one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
I
have
will say, Kaylee has been with me the longest. She worked, my director of operations worked with me through college, and that's how we got to know each other really, really well. And then she's only been boots on the ground for a little over a year. But it doesn't just start and end with her. I have a chief growth officer, Sydney, who is truly the one who is working with Kaylee to grow and scale. And then I have a director of, well, she's also director of non-clinical education. Then I have head of inventory and management at all the locations, and an in-person videographer, photographer. So all of these teams, we have a marketing team, and it's systems. It's building systems and operations and
yeah.
having communication so that people are held accountable, but people are excited to see their measurables, to see if they're hitting their goals. And how do you make people believe in something that you've built just as much or more than you do? How? And that's what we've created. And it's just beautiful to watch. And I show up every day because they're here. If they weren't
Right.
here, I would be like, I'm not doing this anymore.
So you're still injecting.
Hmm. Very,
How
very
would you
little.
say-
So
Okay.
my goal is to have a very open schedule. Patients will come in and they'll say, "Oh, I got in last minute." And I'm like, "Yes, I keep my books open, but the goal is that they're not booking with me. Number one, I'm
Yeah.
more expensive, and number two, I want my schedule open to have business meetings, to do things like this that I love, but to work on the business in a big format." And be available for my injectors. So when they have questions, I had a really cool case today of,
Mm.
a side tangent, of a
Yeah.
woman who came in who had, they looked like prurigo nodules, um, in her submental region, and has been receiving electrolysis for years, and she's convinced that there's all these tiny little micro hairs that are stuck in there, and her electrolysis has tried to pick them out. All this trauma. I'm like, interesting. I was like, I'm pretty sure that the size of your hairs couldn't create this type of clinical picture. This looks like a picker's nodule or something. And I said, are you picking these? And she said, no. And I said, you need to tell me the truth. He goes, well, they itch. And yeah, I do pick them. And I was like, you're probably picking them without even knowing. You've got to keep your hands off of them. And so what did I do? Instead of having to guess, I have an ultrasound.
Yeah.
And so we ultrasounded
Yes.
them. And it was very fascinating. So she had enormous lymph nodes,
Mm.
deep, huge. And
Mm.
then superficial, it was a combination of fluid, edema. They look like there could be somewhat of a little infection in there, a little pussy, but they weren't fibrotic like I thought they were going to be.
Right.
However, we did inject with a little bit of a steroid. We're going to see her back, see if we need to put her on an antibiotic or something. But it was just weird. It was fascinating, weird. She's obviously traumatizing them. Um, but those are the kind of
Yeah.
cases that I want to be available for.
Right, right. I as long as we've been doing this together, we see everything and we see all the complex cases. And a lot of times people are calling us when they have complications. So I think, they say that, the person that knows best about complications is the ones that has the most complications. And that's why you're an expert, is because you have all these complications, right?
Yeah.
And as, a surgeon myself and, as a dermal pathologist yourself, it's like, we understand that you really need to kind of go through all the things so that you can learn from every case. And every case is different. And
Right. And it
sometimes
keeps
they
you
still
humble.
stump us. Yeah.
Yes, it keeps you honest, it keeps you humble. It takes a certain type of person to be able to acknowledge mistakes or complications. And at this point, we get a lot sent to us, but there's never blame placed. It's just, we're another set of eyes. Let's see if we can take this patient and deal with it. We never assume that what was done in another practice, we don't assume right or wrong. We just do what we do regardless of what happened before. For example, had someone who came in who was injected with Hylenex, she was diagnosed by that person as having a hyaluronidase allergy because it swelled up really big. Well, the story timeline didn't make sense. It was 2 hours after she was injected. She had eaten, she has a bunch of allergies. She does have an allergy to bees, but obviously there's a very small crossover there, even though it can happen. Long story short, I was like, let's do it our way. Let's test you for sensitivity. I really think that it's just localized swelling from the hyaluronidase, which can vary. And in some patients, it's a lot. I know
Right.
some patients' lips really flare
Especially with
up.
lips. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about it. We said, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, you have an allergic reaction, and we take care of it. We know exactly how to deal with it. Um, and she came in pre-medicated with Benadryl, and she was completely fine. So you just want to go back to the basics, start thinking from step one instead of
Mhm.
assuming. And I think that's what it's all taught me, is how to work through these issues. And I love putting the pieces together. It's fun.
Yeah, right.
But
And I think the other thing too that you touched on is I also never talk badly about anybody else. And I
no.
think that as physicians and just, colleagues in the medical field, you never want to say anything bad about anybody else because you also don't know exactly what happened and it doesn't help the situation to blame, right? So I think we see a lot of times people are always putting down other people and trying to, make themselves elevated by putting other people down. I'm not down with that. And I love that you're also the same way.
Yeah.
Is the
And I'll
ultimate
tell
thought.
you, people are threatened by GFACE MD and our growth and all of that. And my team has the utmost standards, the utmost values, and we just don't respond. We keep to ourselves. We keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think your team, not I think, I know, your team looks at you as a leader and how you respond to different situations,
For
how
sure.
you respond to people that talk badly about you, how you show up even though you're absolutely dead exhausted. And, you know, I think it requires also self awareness, because I will come in and I'll feel manic or I will be exhausted and I'll say, listen, guys, just want to let you know I'm a little crazed today.
Yes.
So
By the
just
way,
bear with
I was
me.
very emotional today. I may have cried a few times today already. And I had my
Yeah.
tissues on hand. I'm like, today's an emotional day.
Oh, oh, it really
Yeah.
is today?
Yeah, yeah. Today's been an emotional
Oh,
day, but in a good way. In a
oh,
way that's
good.
like we needed communication, we needed, all the things. So I no, but yeah, keep going because
Yeah.
I love everything that you say. Yeah.
Oh, you're so sweet. I feel the same about you. But I think it's truly, you show up regardless of how you're feeling or how you look. I know I came to a team meeting a couple years ago, complete huge allergy attack in my face, whatever. You still show up. Eyes weren't open, whatever. And that's the grit, that's the grind. And your team watches everything you do, but you're not perfect. So when you're not perfect, having a little bit of insight into how you're feeling and being vulnerable is okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I do think there's good days and bad days and everything in between.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I think today, just, since we're on and we're being super honest and transparent, which I love, that we
Yeah.
do this together on your podcast. Yeah, some days, I think when it comes to communication, that's the biggest thing that my staff has always said, it's not there. So we do morning huddles where we talk, where like get people excited almost every day. It's like you have to be the motivator of
Yep.
the practice. Like that is my job as a motivator, but I'm also, CEO, I'm also like HR, I'm also, so it's a lot of different hats that we have to wear. And I love that you delegated. And one of the things that I want to ask you, and I'm sorry that I'm switching it over. Like I need to find out about you because you're doing all the things, right? How
Yeah.
do you find a chief growth officer? Is it somebody that you have in full time? Is it someone that's like partial?
hmm Well, okay, hold that thought. And then I want to tell you something else about communication because that was one of our biggest weaknesses a couple years ago, and now it's our biggest strength.
Mm.
And have you heard of the SWOT analysis?
SWOT? No.
Okay, so we do quarterly team meetings outside of the office, and everyone comes from every location, and we always do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we keep those. Everyone fills it out on their own, and we go around the table, and everybody talks about all of those. And we talk about how we can improve them, and the weaknesses we obviously hone in on and create systems on how to make them better. So do that, and your team can help you. You don't have to take all of the responsibility of how do I make this better. Use the people around you. And that brings me to Sydney, who is Dr. Weiner, Steve Weiner's daughter, Sydney Weiner. And
Oh, okay.
she was also a babysitter.
Aw, that's
um,
nice. The babies, if they can take care of your babies, they can take care of your practice.
yeah, so I forget how I knew she was in Boston, but long story short, I've known Steve and Sandy for a really long time. And then Sydney, I knew she was up here and she was working at a preschool and she was building and growing a preschool. And she came and she took care of my babies once or twice. We kept in touch. And then she sent me a text out of nowhere. And it was about opportunities and aesthetics. She was feeling like she wanted to switch. She loved what we were doing and obviously knew about GFace MD because of her dad and her mom. And I brought her on as essentially the non-clinical director. So I had her do a certain responsibilities her first year that were to build the academy because she used to build schools, so that educational piece. She runs Face It Live, my conference, and a bunch of other things on the, sorry, I think I said non-clinical, sorry, clinical director.
Okay.
And she would help train and onboard new injectors. Now, after a year, which honestly it feels like she's been here much longer, she's accomplished so much. Now she has risen to chief growth officer. So
Mm.
she's already, those were tasks that were done and still are continuing to be built. She maintains the SOPs, which are like hundreds and hundreds of pages now, and
Yeah.
all of the
Look at she's.
documentation.
Yeah.
But now she meets with the injectors every week, has their measurables. How are you doing? How can I assist you? How can I get you busier? Are your patients coming back? How are the treatments going? Do you feel like you're providing for them? So it's those resources and support for the injectors to feel they have someone to go to. And so she reports to Kaylee and also to me and has measurables about three different categories about that are related to growth of the entire company. It has to do with revenue and this and that and this and that. And
Right.
she's bonus based on that. So she's full time. That's
Yeah. That's great.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things I kind of honed in on was, giving people a chance to kind of prove themselves and then having somebody else go through the KPIs with them and then really understanding the targets and then bonusing on them. I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people in this space, don't know how to do. They don't know how to incentivize. They don't know what makes, each person tick. And I think being part of being a good leader is really understanding your family and what makes everybody excited and tick, and they have to see it from you first, right? So I think the culture has to be the same. I think everyone in the workplace has to have a very similar vision, or they have to have a crystal clear vision of what you want, right, as your vision. So I think all the things. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing with me. All right, let me see if I can find a babysitter.
I know, right? You need a good babysitter. And I think, at the end of the day, you want to surround yourself with people that care about you and want to help you and grow with you. And we live in a time right now where not only is it hard to find people that have good work ethic and truly care about what they do, they want flexibility. They want to work from home, or they want this, or they want that. And, you know, the feedback, we just had our party for our opening of our third location on Friday. It's been open all summer, but it was just on Friday. And, the feedback of everyone that came, it was just like, how did you find all these incredible women? Truly. And you have to take care of them. You have to listen to them, take care of them, understand what their needs are, and they're not always what you assume they would be. It's not always financial. It could be many different things, just how they feel, how you're treating them. Do they feel like they're a part of the team or not? And that helps a lot too. Um, but also, it's much easier to elevate people in your company already that believe in you rather than finding someone new. So I always open up if we have different opportunities, like we have some of our team members now running TikTok, running LinkedIn. The content is produced by someone, Julia, who is amazing. And, you know, you never know. They may have these creative outlets. I have my head of inventory for the locations, Jessica, and she runs the esthetician program. She loves planning events. So when we do events, she's doing all that. So you just have to ask, is kind of
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say.
love that. No, I love that. You have all these programs. I'm so jealous. Like, what are these programs, girl?
So, I mean, I read a lot of business books. I mean, so tell me about the structure of your office right now. Do you really feel overwhelmed that you're controlling all of it still?
And there was a time where, I had multiple injectors. I still do. I still have multiple injectors. I had 9 injectors, just like you. And, the structure was that I still see patients. And at that time I was down to 3 days a week injecting. Now I'm back up, because, sometimes people, leave for personal reasons, et cetera, or sometimes things don't work out.
Hmm.
But you're right about, having the right people who really believe in you and want to be there for you, and everyone has to have the right integrity, to be there with you. And so right now, we have multiple injectors. We have an RN, we have a PA, we also have some independent contractors that come in as well. We have a
For
facial
the
plastic
facial
surgeon.
enhancement side, or for what part?
If that's mostly for like the cosmetic surgery side, so things
Okay.
that I can do, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then the facial plastics. So we have like body cosmetic surgery, we have facial plastics.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, because we have an OR here.
Wow.
So we do kind of like non-surgical, surgical, and then we also have somebody else that comes and does some of the. He's a urologist friend of mine, so he does all the, male enhancement procedures. I do some with him, but yeah. So the fact that we have an OR is great because we can
Yeah.
actually do cases here, with anesthesia. So.
So when you say you have you have independent contractors and physicians, are you, how do you do that? You still make all the decisions? They're not partners in the practice.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. They're just, ICs, and, they either pay a flat fee to use our space, room rental, that type of thing. Sometimes we help them get busy, especially if they're starting up, or, if they're new, we just, we send them patients, and it works, both ways. I mean, the ideal thing is it works both ways. They send us patients, we send them patients.
Yeah.
And it's just, everybody wins. So getting into a situation where you have somebody that wants to be there, that wants to grow with you, that, maybe they don't have all the patients to begin with, but we have a lot of patients, right?
Yeah.
So we don't do surgery. I don't do surgery anymore, so it's like I could, and I never did any facial plastics, or so I'll send to them and they do it here. So it's kind of
Oh,
like a one-stop shop, yeah, that I
yeah,
built.
because then the patient feels like they know the team, part of the team, the welcoming
Right.
staff, whatever it may be.
And they trust you. Once they trust you, they're going to trust whoever you recommend, right? And that's how
Totally.
people grow organically. So.
Yeah. So tell me how you branded yourself, because I know your website is all about your liquid facelift. What made you think of that? And do people come in and they know you for this treatment?
They do, yeah. So one thing I think, branding wise, I never realized how important branding was, right? You just kind of get started. Then I was like known for lips for some time. Then I was known for tear troughs for some time. And then I was like, huh, what is it that I really want to be known for? I'm like, I know, I want to be known for all the things, right? It's like, why just be the lip person, right? Or the tear trough person? Like, I'm going to be known for everything. So, I put together this like, celebrity look of facelift. And it's so funny the way that I started. I actually had a makeup artist. Actually, she did some permanent makeup also, and she basically was like, she reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, can we do a trade?" And I was like, "Sure." What does your tear trough cost? I said, well, at that time it was like $650. Now it's 1,500. But back then it was like 650, and I was like, "Well, what do you charge for microblading?" And she's like, "I charge 1,000." So when I was like, okay, so if you
Yeah.
charge 1,000 and I'm charging 650, clearly, I'm undercharging. So the next day I raised my prices to $1,000. But when I met with her and we kind of traded services, she was basically like, you have to brand yourself in such a way that, you see celebrities and you see this and you see that. So I kind of thought of like, okay, maybe I could call it like a celebrity liquid facelift because I really felt like, people want that kind of full face celebrity. But then also it played on the fact that I started getting celebrities once I needed them. So I
Right.
was like, okay, this is great, And
I
so
would love to know who the first one is. I know you can't share it, but it's
I
just like,
cannot.
no,
Yeah, I
of
cannot share.
course. But that's
However,
so
I
funny.
remember thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, it's actually happening!" Like there's
Yes.
right, like sometimes you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is actually happening," and you're like, "Oh," you get so excited, and so, but it all starts with like the kind of like the branding yourself and just putting yourself out there, and people who believe in you, who like want to act like the CMO, the chief marketing officer of your company, just because they believe in you and they like you, And so I think that's organically that's how we grew. And then I think during COVID, when everything shut down in New York City, as you know, we're like the hub of like all these deaths from COVID. I actually went back to the hospital, but I still posted every day, and I had a team that posted every day. And because I also train, everyone allows full face, and I think at that time people wanted to see something different than COVID and death, and they were lonely, and they wanted to reach out to other people, and they were going online and looking at their face, and as you know, all the things during COVID, and that really just kind of boosted things up. So by the time, COVID was, on its way down, and I came out of the hospital, I had 6 months worth of patients that were like waiting for me. And so I kind of went from, a little small, like 100 square foot room to like 1.5 rooms to 2.5 to 3 rooms, and now to 6 rooms plus an OR,
Oh, wow.
7 rooms plus an OR. So it just kind of grew organically, but as you grow, you also take on more staff and more overhead, especially in New York City where it's like everything is so super expensive,
Yeah.
and so it's really about understanding what your numbers are, and then also growing with the overhead as well.
Yeah. And I think that's another perfect example of how sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And as much as we hate to do that, COVID was also a huge blessing for me. It's how I started my conference and my skincare company. But the slowdown of COVID really allowed you to accelerate faster than you ever would have without it.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's always the reminder, Gretchen, just rest. Just close your eyes and rest. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
not possible.
I was going to tell you a funny story. So I paid for this conference. It was like a $5,000 conference. One of my friends, Jen Gottlieb, was speaking at this conference, and she's like, "Lana, you have to go." She's like, I'll have you come in, And I was like, "Well, I'm going to pay for it first of all. I don't believe in not paying for things because sometimes when you don't pay for things, like it's not the same experience." I'm like, "No, I'm going to
No,
pay for it."
you
So I
gotta
paid for the $5,000 just so I could sit there and have her tell me to close my eyes and think about what it is that I wanted. And so I always like tell that story, like I paid $5,000 so I could close my eyes and figure out what it is that I want, because none of us know what we really want, right? We're just like kind of, but if you start with the end in mind, then you can work backwards, right? And so I sat down and I was like, these are the 5 things that I really want for myself and my goals, and then by the end of the year every single one was accomplished, because when you don't have that goal in front of you, you don't even know how to get there or where to get there. So I started saying yes to the things that would get me to my goal, saying no to things that didn't get me there. And
Mhm.
so I always say, I always tell that story.
I
Sometimes you
love
have to
that.
invest, and you have to put your some money on it to invest, so that you can't come out of it. You can't like chicken out and say, "No, actually, I'm not gonna do this damn thing because I've already invested, I already put my money." And that's kind of always how I've been. It's like put money into it, believe myself, and then I'll get there.
I love that. And I also think that is a building block of, or off of, knowing who you are. And I think that's, you can't really know what you want if you don't know who you are. And I say that because I think a lot of people don't. I'm one of those that has worked through so many things, life changes. The past year has been really tough for me, and
Mm.
came out, much stronger and better and much more clear of knowing who I am, but also questioning it. And I question more about why I do what I do and who I surround myself with and intentions and opportunities. And I just look at them much differently. But you really can't figure out what you want. I love working from the end goal backwards to the
Yeah.
first, because that's how you do it. But who are you, right? What
Yeah.
do you want in life? But who are you as a person? How do you treat people and all of that? What do you enjoy? I mean, going through med school and residency and fellowship, you lose your hobbies. I mean, I used to be a dancer and I loved yoga and I loved to do this and that. And I'm like, I sit at home and I'm like, what do I want to do? I'm like,
Right.
I don't even
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, right. No,
So,
I completely agree with that. And I think that, one of the things that I think is so important for us as business owners, for everyone that's listening to your podcast, it's really, understanding what it is that you want and knowing that there's going to be good and bad times. You just said something that resonated with me, which is this was one of the hardest years of your life. And no one would have ever known until you said that, because this was also the hardest year of my life, and nobody would have ever known that either, because we go through certain things, and as business owners, like, we just have to pick up the pieces and we just got to move on. But there's so many different things that are happening, and I think as long as we know who we are, and as we align ourselves with integrity and honesty, I think we'll always be fine, because we are good people at heart. And I think that sometimes, like, there are obstacles in our way, and some things don't work, some things will fail, but it just means that there's opportunities for other things. I always say, like, rejection is just redirection, because there's many times in life that I was rejected or seemingly rejected, but it's because there were other things that were meant for me.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I'd like to hear from you how you do unwind. I mean, what do you like to do to take care of yourself? I need some advice.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, here's the thing. Um, I do believe that sometimes you just have to quiet your mind, because somebody like you and I, who are doing all the things and getting like mental fatigue and burnout, basically been sprinting ever since, I had my child with special needs, and just kind of sprinted, never looked back, never stopped. So I do think it's good for us to kind of like just have a quiet mind, and really just think about it, what we want and what we want out of life. It's really hard, and I think the question is, like, how do you balance it all, and what do you want in life? And the answer is, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't balance it all. I am a hot mess, and like you said, we're all a little crazy.
Yeah.
You have to be a little crazy to do what we do, right? We have to be a little bit like masochistic,
Yes.
and that's the truth. We're all crazy to do
I
this.
mean,
It
to the
has to
point,
be.
masochistic, to the point of like, I'm like, wow, I feel really good today. Like I slept a lot. I'm like, why do I feel good? I
Yeah.
shouldn't be feeling
You're
good. I
like,
should be
what's
feeling
happening? I know.
tired.
Am I doing something wrong that I feel good?
Yeah.
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 So, I think, so what I've realized, that, different stages of life, you want different things, and it's okay to switch. It's okay to pivot. At one point I wanted 20 clinics. That was like my goal, like, 30 million and 20
Michael, we're
clinics.
we're very similar.
Right? I
My
feel
goal
like
is
we are. Like, why
20.
do we not know each other
I don't
until
know.
now? But I'm gonna tell you, just by the way that you're speaking, and just by what you've done, I'm just so impressed, and I want to follow in your footsteps, because in life, you want to follow, in other people's footsteps. If the room that I'm in, I'm the smartest person, I don't want to be in that room, right? And so I love having these conversations with people that are, have already done the thing that I wanted to do, because going from four, clinics, now down back to two clinics, and then wondering if I should, that's no longer my goal. Right? It used to be my goal, but it was never really my goal. I was just trying to do what my friend was doing. He's got 10 clinics now. And I was like, okay, that's his goal. And he told me I should do the same thing. So I'll do the same thing, because he's my mentor. So it's different, and everything happens for a reason. And, I have kids with special needs. So they're my goal, and they're my top priority. I would say, like, my goal right now is I want to enjoy life a little bit, because, we've kind of given our lives up and sacrificed everything that we had, just like my parents sacrificed their lives to come to the US. I've kind of sacrificed my, like, childhood to study. And, things that really, excite me now. I want to bridge the gap between Korea and the US. Like, that is a very specific goal that I have. And I know you've been to Korea.
Yeah.
Um, my goal is to really bring the innovation and the ideas and the know-how. And so I created this trip
Oh my
because,
gosh.
Gretchen, I am terrified of flying, and that is actually my biggest fear is flying and being away from my family and being away from my home. So what did I do?
You
I'm
booked a
creating
17-hour flight.
I booked a 17-hour flight, and I am not only booking a 17-hour flight, but I am putting seven other people in my hands because I booked a tour. It's a
Oh.
K beauty immersion tour, and I'm bringing seven other, people with me, all injectors. And because if I don't like do to the next level, then I won't do it. Then I'll chicken out and then I'll cry and I won't get on that damn plane. So I have to make sure I don't say no and chicken out last minute. So I'm putting together this whole thing and I'm speaking at different conferences and I'm like, I'm just gonna make it happen. I don't know how I'm gonna get on that
Oh,
plane, but I'm gonna make it
you're
happen.
gonna make it happen because they're gonna be
Thank
right
you.
there with you, and you're gonna be just fine.
I'll be just
Just
fine,
fine.
but I just have to push myself. So I think that's kind of the lesson in life that, something that you're afraid of, sometimes you just have to take it head on. And the more that you kind of make things happen that you can't get out of, the more you just have to do the damn thing. Because I'm that type of person that I'm like last minute. I've always crammed the last minute. I've always, like
Oh,
everything is last minute. So if I don't have that pressure, I think that's why I wanted to become like a trauma surgeon, is because I work best under pressure. And if I don't have that pressure, I'm just like,
I got
you know,
time.
I got time. Like I'm supposed to talk on TV on Fox 5 on Good
Oh,
Day New York on Monday. Haven't put anything together. Don't know
I
what I'm
got plenty
talking
of
about.
time. Well, it's because you're
Yeah.
also you're brilliant and naturally you can
No,
be
but
on
thank you.
camera and you're beautiful. So it's almost like, what do you have to worry about? But then it creates this cycle of, well, now I'm anxious because I didn't prepare, but I knew I didn't really need
Yes.
to prepare. So like, what am I doing? The
Yeah.
whole thing. But oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's going to be
Yes.
spectacular.
Yeah. So I'm going to Korea next year. You're coming with me.
Okay, I'll come with you. I'll come with you.
Yeah.
Wait, so I was going to ask you something else. Do you feel like your procrastination has gotten worse as you've gotten older or not?
Yes, 100% because I can't even make like little decisions like in my life. And you said you talk about these big decisions, but like even a decision of what do you want to eat today? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to eat today? I don't make me make these decisions. I can't do it. I do think that there is some like analysis paralysis, type of thing that's going on where it's like, maybe if I just don't deal with it now, I don't make that decision. But I'm going to tell you, it bites you in the ass and it comes back threefold. You got to make those decisions early on because it's going to be that 10 times harder by the time a real problem comes up. So
Yeah. And I think also with me, I am procrastinating more than I ever used to. But I also don't sweat the small stuff anymore, and I don't hold on to information as much as I did, which is bad because I don't remember as much. But that also empowers
yeah.
my team because they remember, and then by default, I don't know. I feel like they're just always laughing at me because I never know what's going on. So it's just
Yeah, and I think that's why I need to be on hormones, and that's why I think I'm very emotional.
I started hormone replacement. It's been great.
Yeah, I just started, and I
Yeah,
don't know if it's been great. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
we'll see. Yeah, so far so good. I don't know, but
Yeah.
what do you think has been? You said it's been a challenging year, and I obviously don't want you to share anything you're uncomfortable with. What, but in your journey, from urology to aesthetic medicine, what's been the biggest thing you've had to overcome, or the hardest thing to overcome?
Yeah, I think
Obviously, your babies.
definitely my babies, but I also think it's kind of knowing what type of person you want to be and just understanding that in life there's no shortcuts and that if you try to take a shortcut, it's going to bite you in the butt, because karma is a real thing. I really believe in karma. I think if you align yourself with integrity and honesty, I think good things will come your way. And I kind of feel like that's the most important thing about being business people. And I know that there are plenty of business people who don't align themselves with integrity and honesty, but
Yeah.
you may be successful in the short run. That's not how I want to live my life, and that's not how what I want my legacy to be. So I think one of the things that I've learned, and if there was any take home message from this, is really what do you want your legacy to be, because everything catches up to you. You have to align yourself with good people. As far as like having a really tough year, I think sometimes when when you align with certain people that you don't you don't know their intentions, or you try your hardest but things don't work out, and it doesn't mean someone's bad or good, it just means things don't work out. I think the biggest lesson that I learned, my dad said to me before, was like, Lana, if you're going to be a business owner, you're going to learn how to fight for yourself. And I'm not a fighter, and I've never been a fighter. I'm like always like in the background, like let's make everybody happy. But he's like, if you're not gonna be a fighter, then you should basically go back to work in the hospital and just listen to everybody else. But if you're gonna empower yourself, and he said this all in Chinese, of course, if you're gonna empower yourself and you're gonna run a business, you people are gonna come after you, and people are gonna be, trolls. They're gonna be mean to you. I mean, I'm just kind of like, this is not what he said, he said it in Chinese, but basically the bottom line is, the bigger you are or the more successful you are, the more people you have after you, right? And so that's one thing that even starting out, I kind of, had to kind of contend with and deal with. And so is the idea, stay small, and that's kind of what my whole life has been about: staying small and not being, like, recognized, staying in my lane, not, lifting up my head, just keeping my head down and being that good, obedient, surgical, resident. That's kind of how I've been all my life. And then understanding that when things need to be addressed, they need to be addressed, and I can't shy away from that. So I'm almost like having to empower myself and make myself into this person that I'm not, just because, I cannot let, other people dictate, my level of success because they're uncomfortable with it.
100%. And I love literally everything you said. And people will have an opinion regardless. If you do it right, if you do it wrong, if you say nothing, people will always have an opinion. And my biggest lesson in life recently, in the past couple of years, is their opinion doesn't matter. And if they care about you and they want to get to know you and they have the facts, they will come to you to want the facts. But it's the people that don't care about you and they just want to have their own opinion. And specifically in aesthetics, there are people that you think are on your side and then they're not. And whatever it is, everybody's out for their own success and whatever it may be. But to stay true to yourself, that you know who you are, to push yourself, right? To stand up for yourself when maybe you weren't going to do that before, but now you are so accomplished, you're so brilliant that you're like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
do it in a respectful way, and to just not respond when people say things that are inappropriate or say or gossiping about you. I'm like, we are grown adults. There's no
Hmm.
reason for any of this. And I think that's been, the bigger you get, the more your name's out there, the more people talk, and you just have to say, congratulations.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And then the one thing that I'll say is that I want to lead with positivity. And I talked about my legacy, and I want what I want my legacy to be. And I think what I want my legacy to be is bringing people together, connecting people, building platform, empowering each other. So yes, there are times when people try to like bring some negativity into the situation, but like you said, I don't want to engage in that, because I really, really, like, my goal is very crystal clear to me, is I want everything to be positive. I want to lead with positivity. So if somebody wants to, play games, or they want to say some negative things, I just let them, and I, let my lawyers deal with it. But no, I'm my mindset is such that I really just want to lead with positivity. I really want nothing bad for anyone else. And I just want all good things for everybody, because I think there's a space for everybody. And that's why we created this Facebook group that has, over 35,000 injectors on it, and then with the doctors, it's like over
I
40,000.
didn't
It's
know
because
that. Wait, tell us about that.
yeah, so it's called
What
the
is that?
Aesthetics. Yes, the Aesthetic Medicine and Wellness Group. It's on Facebook. About 7 years
Oh,
ago, when there was, not a lot of groups on Facebook. We put together a group where we can all share in ideas. And yes, sometimes people bicker on there a little bit and say mean things, and we just kick them out, because there's no room for negativity. We can all coexist and help each other. And wouldn't that be great if we could all coexist and help each other and
yeah.
elevate each other? There's enough to go around. It's always like, there's always like that scarcity mentality, which I understand, but the success will come when you give and you have value and you help other people. And that's what I've realized. And, just not because I want something good to come back to me, is that I'm good to other
Yeah.
people,
yeah.
But when you build together, and you have a platform where you're helping everybody else out, I think good things come from that. And now not everyone has good intentions. So you just have to weed those people out, and the people that are in your group. So we got 40,000 people now in our group. And we've done some amazing things, Gretchen. We put together GPOs where we have cannulas. It's called Face Med Store.
Wow.
I don't know if you've heard of Face Med Store, but
I read on your website. I hadn't heard of it
yeah,
before.
it's we created an EMR, we created this community, we created a platform where we can educate. So it's like an auditorium platform where it's virtual, so you can like go into the auditorium, your avatar walks in, you can click on,
Oh,
so
I love that.
yeah, it's really cute. So like we did like a global symposium where I had like doctors from Middle East, and doctors from Korea, doctors from Japan, doctors from UK. Like we all came together and did this like huge platform, for this global symposium, because I my whole goal is just to bring people together.
I love
It's not
that.
to separate people, it's not to be ahead of other people. It's just like we all need to get along in
Yeah.
order for us to all succeed.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And with the getting along part, you got to love a good healthy debate. Like that's why we talk, is we talk about opinions and all that, but with a baseline level of understanding and respect. And that's I think what we're truly missing. Because it
Right.
doesn't mean you can't debate on interesting topics.
Right.
But where's the respect, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome. I could literally talk to you
Yes.
forever.
Thank you. Oh my
Because
gosh. Thank you for having me on. This is great. I learned so much from you.
I learned so much from you. We should do another one.
We'll definitely do another one.
We could do episode two. I almost said season two. I'm like, I'm sure we could do a whole season two. But so tell people where they can find you on social media.
So Dr. Lana, spelled out DoctorLanna on Instagram and on TikTok. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
I'm trying to get into YouTube as well, but yeah, I think Instagram is the best way.
So great. Well, thank you so much for all of
Thank
you guys
you.
watching. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Gretchen. You're amazing.